Very good morning, my dear students. How are you all? Hope you are all staying safe, healthy, and using these quarantine days usefully. Today, in this module, we will see the concepts of Zeeman effect, spin angular momentum, and Stern and Gerlach experiment. Before we see the Zeeman effect, I would like to give a recap of the orbital angular momentum quantum number L. So, capital L is the azimuthal or orbital angular momentum quantum number, which gives the shape of the atomic orbitals, or in particular it gives the magnitude and the possible orientations of the orbital angular momentum of electrons. This we have seen in the last class. We have three other quantum numbers. N is the principal quantum number giving the energy of the electrons. L is the azimuthal quantum number, gives the possible orientations and magnitude of the orbital angular momentum. We have ML, which is the magnetic quantum number, and another one spin quantum number. So with a given state of orbital quantum number L, it gets split into 2L plus 1 substates in the presence of magnetic field running from minus L to plus L through 0. So say you have a given state with L is equal to 1, it gets split into 3 states, 2L plus 1, 2 into 1 plus 1, 3 states, substates, running from minus 1 to plus 1. Similarly, for L is equal to 2, it gets split into 2 into 2 plus 1, 5 substates, running from minus 2 to plus 2. For L is equal to 3, the splitting is from minus 3 to plus 3. That is 2 into L plus 1, 2 into 3 plus 1, 7 substates. Now, if you have a hydrogen atom of magnetic quantum number ML, it has the magnetic energy Vm is equal to ML EH cross by 2m into B, where EH cross by 2m is the Bohr magneton, and this relation has been derived earlier. Now, each of these substates differing by the value ML is equal to 1. Now, the magnetic energy between the substates, they would differ by the value EH cross by 2m into B, with ML taking up the value 1. Now, what is Zeeman effect? Zeeman effect was first observed by Peter Zeeman in the year 1896, which is nothing but the splitting of spectral lines into separate sublines when atoms radiate in a magnetic field, with the spacing of the lines dependent on the strength of the magnetic field. How do we account for the splitting of spectral lines in the presence of magnetic field with the help of quantum mechanics? We know that a state of quantum number L, it gets split into 2L plus 1 substates. Now, the key statement here is, in the transition between the states, the changes in ML are restricted to del ML is equal to 0 or plus or minus 1. That is, you do not have all possible transitions, but they follow certain selection rules. They are restricted by the selection rules. That is, del ML is equal to 0, plus or minus 1. Therefore, a given spectral line that arises from the transition between two states would be split into 3 components with frequencies original one nu naught and nu naught plus EB by 4 pi m and nu naught minus EB by 4 pi m. How do we get this value? So actually, from the last slide, the magnetic energy between the substates would be EH cross B by 2m. This we have seen. Now, E is equal to, energy E is equal to h nu. That is the relation connecting energy and frequency. So, if we want to have frequency nu, then E should be divided by h. Therefore, the two other components gets the value nu naught plus or minus EH cross B by 2m by h. So, when you substitute the value of h cross, which is equal to h by 2 pi, you get nu naught plus or minus EB by 4 pi m. Now, you can explain this Zeeman effect beautifully with the help of this spectral diagram. When there is no magnetic field, the transition between two states, namely L is equal to 2 and L is equal to 2, is a direct transition. You get a single spectral line. But in the presence of magnetic field, what happens? L is equal to 2 gets split into 5 different states running from minus 2 to plus 2 through 0. Similarly, L is equal to 1 gets split into 3 states running from -1 to +1 through 0. 2L plus 1 rule they follow. Now what about the transition between these states? So they do not undergo all possible transitions. Instead they follow the selection rules, namely del ML is equal to 0, +1 and -1. So how do you understand this? Consider these 3 transitions in the middle. So they are from 1 to 1, 0 to 0, -1 to -1. That means del ML value is the difference between the final ML minus initial ML. So it is 1 minus 1, 0. 0 minus 0, 0. -1 minus 1, 0. So these 3 transitions correspond to del ML value 0 and they give up a single spectral line. Similarly, the transitions on the right, these 3, they are from 2 to 1, 1 to 0 and 0 to -1. Therefore, the del ML value will be from final minus initial. So 1 minus 2 minus 1, 0 minus 1 minus 1, -1 minus 0 minus 1. So these 3 transitions correspond to a single spectral line of del ML value -1. What about these 3 transitions? So these are from 0 to 1, -1 to 0 and -2 to -1. So del ML is from final to minus. So it is 1 minus 0 plus 1, 0 minus of -1 plus 1, -1 minus of -2 is +1. So these 3 transitions would give rise to a single spectral line of del ML value +1. So this is the normal Zeeman effect. The same picture in a colored way. So I say that in the normal Zeeman effect, it gets the splitting of spectral lines into 2L plus 1 separate sublines, giving threefold splitting of spectral lines. Nu naught plus, nu naught minus, threefold splitting. We saw that. Now do all the transitions, they obey this 3-line splitting? No. Even more components appear, and why is it so? For a sodium principal doublet transition, we see that the transition do not obey the 3-line splitting. Instead, you get more components here. Like this, many elements, they deviate from the normal Zeeman effect, and therefore that is called as anomalous Zeeman effect. How do you account for this fine structure in spectral lines and the anomalous Zeeman effect? So it was the brilliance of S.A. Goudsmit and G.E. Uhlenbeck. S.A. Goudsmit and G.E. Uhlenbeck, they proposed way back in 1925 that independent of any orbital angular momentum, the electron must possess an intrinsic angular momentum too with an associated magnetic moment. So how could that be possible? So they had in mind a picture of an electron as a charged sphere, not only rotating around the nucleus in orbits, but also spinning on its axis with a spin angular moment. I repeat, so now an electron is not only orbiting with the orbital angular momentum, but it should be also thought of as a charged sphere spinning on its axis with spin angular momentum. And they denoted a quantum number S, which was used to describe the spin angular momentum, and the only possible value S could have was chosen to be +12. The magnitude S of the spin angular momentum is S is equal to S root of S into S plus 1 H cross. And this formula is very much similar to the L is equal to orbital angular momentum magnitude. Capital L is equal to root of L into L plus 1 H cross. And the possible orientations of spin angular momentum is given by the space quantization rule. Capital Sz is equal to ms H cross, where ms can take up plus or minus half, so 2 possible orientations. And the magnetic moment related to spin angular momentum is mu is equal to E by m into S, and its possible orientation component is mu Sz, which is given by EH Ross by 2m. Now this electron possessing spin angular momentum and having two possible orientations or components given by 2s plus 1, which is 2 into half plus 1 is equal to 2, was demonstrated experimentally by an experiment called Stern and Gerlach experiment. It was performed by the eminent scientists O. Stern and W. Gerlach in 1921, where a beam of silver atoms were directed from an oven through a set of collimating slits into an inhomogeneous magnetic field, and a photographic plate recorded the configuration of the beam after its passage through the field. So this is the setup. So I have an oven from which a beam of silver atoms were allowed to pass through two collimating slits through an inhomogeneous magnetic field. The magnetic field has different value in different directions. So this particular passage, after passing through this particular inhomogeneous magnetic field, they were allowed to fall on a photographic plate and its configuration was recorded. Now what could you say about the results? In normal state, the entire magnetic moment is due to spin of its electrons. Now when you have a uniform magnetic field, the spinning electron could be thought of as a dipole experiencing a torque tending to align to the field. Now in an inhomogeneous field, each pole of the dipole is subject to different magnitude of the field. Classically, all orientations should be present, resulting in the broad trace on the photographic plate. So when you think of the electron as a spinning dipole, and if it is experiencing an inhomogeneous field, each pole of the dipole would experience the different magnitude of the field. So you would expect all possible orientations. Am I right? So the dipole, each pole will experience different field. So the photographic plate should show me a broad trace. That was what is expected. However, Stern and Gerlach found that the initial beam got split into two distinct parts corresponding to two spin orientations in the magnetic field permitted by the space quantization. So this was the classical prediction, the expected result, but Stern and Gerlach observed that the trace got split into two distinct parts corresponding to the two spin orientations of ms is equal to plus or minus half h cross. This is the experimental records found from Stern and Gerlach experiment. Thus, now you can clearly distinguish normal and anomalous Zeeman effect, as the normal Zeeman effect being the splitting of spectral lines of an atomic spectrum due to the interaction between the external magnetic field and the orbital magnetic moment. Anomalous Zeeman effect happens because of the interaction between the magnetic field and the combined orbital as well as intrinsic magnetic momentum due to the spin of the electrons. So the spin contributing an intrinsic magnetic moment is absent in the normal Zeeman effect. So this is observed at zero electron spin states, and this is observed in the presence of electron spin. One spectral line is split into a triplet here. Here it gets split into a complicated pattern. Now we have seen the three different concepts: electron spin, normal and Zeeman effect, and Stern and Gerlach experiment. The frequently asked questions would be the basic descriptive questions of kind: explain normal Zeeman effect, describe Stern and Gerlach experiment. And apart from that, we can have tricky questions like what experimental evidence is there for electron having a spin. The answer could be something on the lines of fine structure and anomalous splitting. What is the classical pattern expected in the Stern and Gerlach experiment? And what actually resulted broad trace and splitting into two distinct parts? Something like this. So the reference is Perspectives of Modern Physics, our reference book by Arthur Weiser. And you could also refer to websites of Hyperphysics. For further queries and classifications, you can refer to Google Classroom of this code, and you can ping me in my email too. Thank you, my dear students. Now it's up to you.